Hi, Right Writers with Cruz here. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to be focused on writing a paragraph on metaphors. So, if metaphors are something that you struggle with or need help figuring out how to write a paragraph with a poem, this is it. This is your video. So, we are using a poem and it may look familiar to you if you saw the paragraph on hyperbole. And we are using the same poem. I'm using the same poem that I used by Kara Jackson called Anthem for My Belly After Eating Too Much. She is a youth poet laureate. And so we're really excited. I'm really excited to be using her work for this analysis. And I loved that it really had a lot of metaphor within the work besides hyperbole. And so I was thinking to myself, let's go ahead and analyze for metaphor, specifically the metaphors about her belly. Or the belly that is referenced from the narrator in the work. And we see the pronoun I in the work. And so definitely first person perspective here. So we're going to read the work. Again, if you did not get a chance to see the previous video using this poem, check out hyperbole and then join this one. Or if you're just thinking to yourself, hey, I just need metaphor, so this is your video. All right, let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I want to do is create a basic standard definition for metaphor. And so if you are familiar with metaphor, you know that it is a direct comparison of pretty much any two nouns. So I'm just going to go ahead and put nouns here: person, place, thing, or idea. It is a direct comparison. I like to say that metaphors and similes are cousins of each other. They are related. Although metaphor is the more direct, or if they were sisters, metaphor would be the more direct sister, whereas simile is a little less direct. And so simile uses like or as to make a comparison. And metaphor just says, we don't need like or as. We're just going to go ahead and say it, call it like it is. So when you think of metaphor, I want you to think of someone maybe you know who tends to just say things exactly as they are, and there is no filter. So we're going to be looking for metaphor in the work Anthem for My Belly After Eating Too Much. Here we go. Now to our poem. So I'm moving over to the left side, and then we're going to start looking for our text evidence. And again, using lines from the poem. Anthem for My Belly After Eating Too Much by Kara Jackson. I look in the mirror and all the chips I've eaten this month have accumulated like schoolwork at the bottom of my tummy, my belly, a country I'm trying to love. My mouth is a lover devoted to you, my belly, the birds will string a song together with wind for you and your army of solids, militia of grease. Americans love excess, but we also love jeans and refuse to make excess comfortable in them. I step into a fashionable prison, my middle managed and fastened into suffering. My gracious gut, dutiful dome, I will wear a house for you that you can live in, promise walls that embrace your growing flesh and watch you reach toward everything possible. Every time I read this poem, I mess up right in this little section. I want that thought to continue, and I forget about that little period. So I'm going to go ahead and take it one more time here. Anthem for My Belly After Eating Too Much by Kara Jackson. I look in the mirror and all the chips I've eaten this month have accumulated like schoolwork at the bottom of my tummy, my belly, a country I'm trying to love. My mouth is a lover devoted to you. My belly, the birds will string a song together with wind for you and your army of solids, militia of Greece. Americans love excess, but we also love jeans and refuse to make excess comfortable in them. I step into a fashionable prison, my middle managed and fastened into suffering. My gracious gut, dutiful dome, I will wear a house for you that you can live in, promise walls that embrace your growing flesh, and watch you reach toward everything possible. All right, thank you, Kara Jackson, for this wonderful work, which we will be using for our look at metaphor. So I'm going to shrink this just a little bit and clear the screen. And we're looking specifically for metaphor, a direct comparison where two things, two nouns. I like using the word nouns because nouns are persons, places, things, ideas, objects, animals, person, place, thing, idea. So metaphor. Okay, definitely we see the word like, and so we have a simile here where Kara Jackson compares chips to schoolwork, which has accumulated, and I'm sure we have all experienced that. And here is where I really see that first metaphor, and if you saw the hyperbole, you could say that wait a second, you use that for a hyperbole too. And yes, you can. With literary devices, sometimes they can be used for more than one thing. So just keep that in mind. Right, writers. Okay, so she's got my belly, a country I'm trying to love. Then we have this idea of my birds will string a song together with wind for you and your army of solids, militia of Greece. So, army of solids, militia of Greece. And I'm thinking, could that also be referring to the belly? That the belly, but perhaps it's really the belly has an army of solids, militias of Greece, a militia of Greece. Then we also see another comparison where she looks at jeans. And Americans love excess, but we also love jeans. And then it says, I step into a fashionable prison, my middle managed and fastened into suffering. So you manage to kind of get your belly into those jeans and fasten them. And so in this case, jeans are being compared to a fashionable prison. And so we've got that metaphor here. So we've got this jeans and prison, belly and country, and then, just kind of thinking about the militia and the Greece. I like these two for sure. I'm going to put little stars here. And then I like this metaphor as well. I definitely know that I can expand and talk about that metaphor. And then we've got this belly, again, being compared, being thought of as a gracious gut. That could also be personification. And this idea of dutiful dome. So because a gut or our stomach is a synonym, I'm going to instead focus on this metaphor, this dutiful dome. So comparing the gut or the belly to a dutiful dome, my gracious gut, dutiful dome. Again, thinking about how we could do that, we could look at these two together or bring it all back together to this idea of the belly, depending on which way we kind of want to go with this. So we've got this also serving as a metaphor. We definitely have plenty to work with for this piece. And so for these paragraphs, and we're going to go ahead and start jumping in. Again, I want to set myself up for success. So I'm going to copy and paste my link to the poem. And then I want to make sure that I include the poem's title. And I want to make sure I spell everything correctly, and I spell it exactly as the poet had intended, the writer had intended. Anthem for my belly after eating too much. Poet, writer here is Kara Jackson. Let's get started. Let's get some lines from the poem here. So we've first got my belly, a country I'm trying to love. Notice, again, the punctuation, the capitalization. I'm following exactly as Kara Jackson had intended. And notice how I'm going in order of the poem. And so I'm following the ordering. I am going to let go of solids, militia of Greece, and instead I'm going to go to jeans. And refuse to make excess comfortable in them. I step into a fashionable prison. Jeans, a fashionable jeans. I step into a fashionable prison. And so here I have jeans, and I know that this is referring back to the jeans. And so I put these ellipses here, these period, 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 dot, 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 to let the reader know that there are words here, but I wanted jeans and I wanted fashionable prison. So I wanted to include those two together. And then we're going to go with gracious gut, beautiful dome. And in this case, again, we can use that as a metaphor back to the belly and back to, or use the dome back to the gracious gut, depending on which way we want to go. And now we're going to start creating our paragraphs. Let's jump in. And again, please join me, Right Writers, and, start the process. Again, I'd like for you to think of me as, I'm sort of a guide by your side. You're Batman, I am your Robin here. So let's begin. We're going to start with our middle school paragraph version. And if you've subscribed to my channel and or seen many of my videos, I know that they are obscenely long, and I apologize for that. Because again, I like to hyper focus on one topic. And the first thing that I want to do as a writer is I want to make sure that I want to make sure I bring this over, first of all. But I want to make sure that I talk about the poem, that it's a poem, a title, and then that I'm talking about metaphor. So Kara Jackson's Anthem for my belly after eating too much. Kara Jackson's poem, Anthem for my belly after eating too much, contains or has metaphor. Again, super basic, very simple first sentence, letting our reader know where we are going. We're going to talk about metaphor. We know the poem we're talking about, the title of the poem. We know it's a poem, and we know it's written by Kara Jackson. Kara Jackson's poem, Anthem for my belly after eating too much, contains metaphor. Now we tell the reader what metaphor is. Never assume the reader knows. Tell them. Metaphor is when a writer uses a direct comparison. We don't have to say two things. It is implied. So we know when you're comparing something, you have to compare two things. So we don't want to sound redundant. It's a good word to know. We want to avoid redundancy. We don't want to sound redundant. So metaphor is when a writer uses a direct comparison. When something is being compared, we know we're talking about two or more objects. Uses a direct comparison. All right, now let's talk about metaphors when a writer uses a direct comparison. Now let's find it in the poem and let's talk about it. So we're going to start by giving, for example. But this time I'm going to change it up. Normally I say, for example, I'm going to use a different transition word, and I'm going to again, start to expand as more and more videos are created for you all, and to help you think about transition words, different transition words, as we grow together as writers. So, for instance, is another way to say, for example. And this lets the reader know, hey, I'm about to give you an example from this poem written by Kara Jackson. So that's the purpose of that. So, for instance, in the poem, or in Jackson's poem. Now, because we say poem in the second sentence, I'm going to leave the reader hanging for just a moment and then let them find out about the poem in this third sentence. We're going to leave them in suspense here. For instance, in Jackson's poem, when Jackson's poem states, my belly, a country I'm trying to love. She compares her belly to a country. To love, she compares her belly to her stomach to, I'm going to go ahead, say a country in quotations, her stomach to a country, to emphasize how full she feels. The title says it. It says anthem for my belly after eating too much. And if you as the reader do not understand what after eating too much means, then maybe this is too much for you. So, I would argue that I don't think you have to elaborate on that, because the title right here says it, after eating too much. So sometimes we can let the title do the work if it's directly stated. So she compares her stomach to a country to emphasize how full she feels, and that she is comfortable with that feeling. I put a comma before the and because I have what's called a conjunction of fanboys, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. And then I also have a complete sentence after that conjunction, so comma before conjunction. All right, and she is comfortable with that feeling. Next up, jeans, I step into a fashionable prison. Okay. Later, the narrator calls jeans, and I think I'm going to cut that quote just a little bit more. I'm going to just say jeans calls jeans a fashionable prison. Here, Jackson compares popular clothing to, and it's interesting again, this comparison, a fashionable prison, compares popular clothing to, a jail cell. Now, why she does this, we'll go into this in the high school paragraph, and we'll elaborate on that. Later, Jackson compares popular clothing to a jail cell. And again, and you could say because she's got to fit her stomach in it. So a fashionable prison. So we could even add that from the middle school perspective, because that's pretty straightforward. Here, Jackson compares popular clothing to a jail cell because the narrator must fit her stomach in denim. I'll leave it at that. A pair of denims. I'll just go with denim. Then we have gracious gut, dutiful dome. I actually think I'm going to save this for my high school version, and I may change my mind later. That's allowed as a writer. You have power, you have choice. And I'm going to begin to wrap it up because I feel like that is sufficient for, a middle school level. Here, Jackson compares popular clothing to a jail cell because the narrator must fit her stomach in denim. Therefore, Or thus, this is another, thus is used for cause and effect. And thus, also used for cause and effect, also used to sort of emphasize. And let's use our, if you've seen other videos, you know that I'm a big fan of indeed. So we're going to use indeed. Indeed. Here, let's take it from the top. Ladies and gentlemen, Kara Jackson's Anthem for My Belly After Eating Too Much contains metaphor. Metaphor is when a writer uses a direct comparison. For instance, when Jackson's poem states, "My belly, a country I'm trying to love," she compares her stomach to a country to emphasize how full she feels. And she is comfortable with that feeling. Ooh, I'm going to change this transition or this conjunction to yet. Yet she is comfortable with that feeling. Later, the narrator calls jeans a fashionable prison. Here, Jackson compares popular clothing to a jail cell because the narrator must fit her stomach in denim. Indeed. Ooh, there's kind of a predicament here because these two metaphors, it's like on one sense, it's a country I'm trying to love, but then she calls her jeans this fashionable prison that she has to step into. So there's a little bit of a, that's interesting, an interesting something to think about there, this predicament, because on the one hand, she's trying to be comfortable with that feeling and who she is, but when you're snapping on those jeans and they're a little tight, that can sometimes create a level of discomfort. So that's an interesting predicament to be in. So a predicament, I'm going to think about that for a minute, and that might end this paragraph, middle schoolers. All right, indeed, the narrator finds herself in a metaphorical predicament. So when you're in a predicament, that means you're in a situation that you kind of can't get out of because you just can't. You find yourself, you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, as they say. Indeed, the narrator finds herself in a metaphorical predicament, comfortable with her fullness, because she needs to feel comfortable with her fullness, and she needs to feel, yet she feels discomfort in, so again, this idea of a prison, I'm closed in. So she feels discomfort, using the prefix dis. Indeed, the narrator finds herself in a metaphorical predicament because she needs to feel comfortable with her fullness. She must feel comfortable with her fullness because she needs to feel, or she wants to feel comfortable with her fullness. Yet she recognizes her discomfort, recognizes how uncomfortable she feels in the clothing she's wearing. Kara Jackson's Anthem for My Belly After Eating Too Much contains metaphor. Contains metaphors. Contains metaphor. I'm going to go with that. Singular. Metaphor is when a writer contains interesting metaphors. I'm just going to go with it. Metaphor is when a writer uses a direct comparison. For instance, when Jackson's poem states, "My belly, a country I'm trying to love," she compares her stomach to a country to emphasize how full she feels. Yet, she is uncomfortable with that feeling. Yet, I need to include that, trying to love. Yet she is comfortable how full she feels, yet she is trying to love. yet she is, yet she needs to feel comfortable, needs to feel comfortable with that. Okay, so another word for feeling, because I got feels, I got feel, and I got feeling. I got feels, suffix with the S, and then ing, so feeling. To emphasize how she feels, yet she needs to feel comfortable, yet she needs to feel comfortable with that experience, with that sentiment, with that experience. Later, the narrator calls jeans a fashionable prison. Here, Jackson compares popular clothing to a jail cell because the narrator must fit her stomach in denim. Indeed, the narrator finds herself in a metaphorical predicament because she wants to feel comfortable with her fullness, yet she recognizes how uncomfortable she feels in the clothing she's wearing. Therefore, Jackson's use of metaphor, well, let's go with our typical. Therefore, Jackson uses metaphor to make direct comparisons. Therefore, Jackson uses metaphor to make direct comparisons, and we'll just leave it there. Okay, high school, we're leveling up here. And for my advanced writers, if at this point, right, writers, if you've been hanging out with me for a little bit, then I know you're stepping up. You're stepping up your game. I know you are. So, okay, here we go. We're going to borrow a lot of this because a lot of this is pretty good, but we're going to start to level it up by making sentences a little bit longer and being more intentional about what we're using. But we're also going to look at this idea. I'm going to borrow this text evidence again because we've got to get more into the why, but we sort of kind of did in the previous one. The only thing I'm going to add to this one, so I think we kind of covered this one. So the why, again, that's where we get into the analysis. If you're not asking yourself why questions, you are not analyzing. And think about it like a scientist. You know, scientists tend to ask why. Why is that? Why is this? Why is that? So they are very, very curious. If you are not asking questions that involve curiosity, then you will never get to the point of analyzing. You have got to ask why. And maybe as a kid, maybe you are a kid right now watching this video, but maybe you were told not to ask why questions. But it's time to start asking why questions. Why is that? Why does this happen? Why is the sky blue? So we really need to ask that if we want to analyze, if we want to level up our writing. Otherwise, we are just writing constantly at an elementary level. So if you want to step up your game, you got to start asking why questions. So I think we answered this earlier. So this is, we completed this in the previous, write down here to emphasize how full she feels, yet she needs to feel comfortable with that experience. So I think we addressed that. So completed earlier. I think we addressed this with this idea of, again, trying to fit in the compares popular clothing to a jail cell because the narrator must fit her stomach in denim. But we're going to elaborate on that because, again, this idea of a jail cell of a prison implies, why do this? Because she feels confined. So there's a sense of confinement and we cannot escape it. No escape. And then we end with this idea of gracious gut, dutiful dome. So here, why compare her gut to a dutiful dome? Or her stomach, her belly rather. So my belly, why compare it to a gracious gut, a dutiful dome? It's almost, again, this idea of duty. You have, it is my duty to honor you. I am a gracious gut. I must praise you. And again, this idea of anthem, an anthem is a song to praise. So, we've got our national anthem, oh, say, can you see? So in this case, we've got this again, this duty, this graciousness. So there's this idea of I must honor the space, honor the space, honor her stomach, her body, honor her body, honor stomach and body. So in that case, and I even like that because it's sort of, again, it's just unfolding to me in so many ways. And maybe Kara Jackson is like, really? Come on. Really? Really, Cruz? So I want to go here, and I'm going to go ahead and bring this over and move this down. So honor stomach and body. And ooh, I really like where this is going. I feel like this high school paragraph is going to really just shine here. So I'm going to move this down, and let's take a look at this baby. I'm feeling really good about where this is going to go. So Kara Jackson's anthem. Sorry, I tend to put my, my index finger and close it up under my thumb here and just do that thinker look, under my chin. And so if my voice changes, that's why, because I'm feeling very, very smart. High school paragraph. Kara Jackson's anthem for my belly after eating too much contains metaphor. Oh, we don't have to say direct comparison. We'll just say contains direct, contains uses direct comparisons. Kara Jackson's anthem for my belly after eating too much. Ooh, I kind of want to go with this idea of eating too much. So, this idea of binging. When you eat too much, you are gluttonous. So you have gluttony. You're gluttonous. You are, let's see, you indulge. So if you're indulging, so I just kind of was thinking about food and just verbs, some pretty pronounced verbs and racy verbs that have a little more potency, power. So indulge, you savor things. I had another word in my brain and it's gone, but when I was thinking of indulge, but maybe I kind of want to use that to really spice up this paragraph. So Kara Jackson's anthem for my belly after eating too much indulges. Ooh, I love it. Indulges. Ooh, what if we said indulges in gluttonous metaphors? Oh boy. Let's try that. Boy, that might be a little too much. In gluttonous metaphors, Kara Jackson's anthem for my belly after eating too much indulges in gluttonous metaphors. And I think we can take out the direct comparison because we kind of go into it in this what she compares. So I'm going to leave that alone. At this point, if you're at the high school, college level, we know what a metaphor is, but it's good to use the term compares because then from a reader that doesn't, they've got it in the next sentence. Boy, am I really liking where this is going. Can you tell? For instance, when Jackson's poem states, my belly, a country I'm trying to love, she compares her stomach to a country to emphasize how full she feels. And really, we know it's a hyperbole to hyperbolically emphasize how full she feels, yet she needs to feel comfortable with that experience. And so if you want to include that idea of hyperbole, hyperbole within it. You can even make it an adverb and say hyperbolically emphasize. Hyperbolically, ooh, is that right? Let's go. Aha with one L. Haha. And you thought that wasn't a real word. To hyperbolically emphasize her stomach to a country. Oh, to hyperbolically emphasize how full she feels. Oh, but those of you who are like, you can't have an infinitive, you can't have an adverb before the verb. So for those of you who hate that infinitive, I'll keep it the infinitive with the verb. To emphasize how full she feels. She hyperbolically compares. Ooh, I'm going to use it over here. So adverb with the verb, hyperbolically compares her stomach to a country to emphasize how full she feels, yet she needs to feel comfortable with that experience. Later, the narrator calls jeans a fashionable prison. Here, Jackson compares popular clothing to a jail cell because the narrator must fit her stomach into a denimus. Is that a word? A denimus? I mean, really, like that, nothing's coming up. So, I mean, I just made denim an adjective. Into a denimus. Boy, I really feel like I need to look that up. I'm going to go ahead and check on my other computer and see if that's a go on here. So I'm going to go to my other. I'm truly nerding out here with you guys. So you're just going to have to. I got to apologize. So okay, as I'm going here, let me go to see what we got here. Into a denimus, let's go with denim filled. Compares popular clothing to a jail cell because the narrator must fit her stomach into a denim filled confinement. A denim must fit her stomach into a denim-filled confinement. Must fit her stomach into a denim-filled confinement. Okay, we could go with that one. And we can always change it and see whether or not that could work. And so I'm still going to kind of look up that word denimus and see if that's a go. So denimus, yeah, not really seeing anything on that. So I'm going to go ahead and get denimus out. I'm glad I took that out. Into a denim-filled confinement. Okay, but then it says into a fashionable prison. So here Jackson compares popular clothing to a jail cell because the narrator must fit her stomach into a denim-filled confinement. Into a denim-filled confinement. I'm going to go with that, and then we can always change that up. Because you could also just say into a denim confinement, and that could work because I've got denim as an adjective, confinement as the noun. Indeed, the narrator finds herself in, and then I've got gracious gut and dutiful dome. Okay. Later, okay, I've already said later. Then, the narrator, then she compares her gracious gut, and she calls her tummy, or she calls her tummy, her belly, a gracious gut, dutiful dome, to compare. Then she compares her belly to and really she's kind of extending her metaphor. So she's lengthening it. Then she extends her metaphor by comparing her belly to a gracious gut, dutiful dome, to honor her stomach, her body, to honor her stomach, her body, to honor the space, to honor her physical space, to honor her stomach, to honor her stomach, to honor the space, her stomach, the space, her stomach, to honor the space, her stomach, to honor the space where her stomach resides or lives. Ooh, I like that. To honor the space where her stomach resides. Okay. Indeed. Okay, then she we can even say binges on her metaphor, but I'm going to just say then she extends the metaphor, because that's really it's called an extended metaphor when you kind of elaborate. Then she extends her metaphor by comparing her belly to a gracious gut, dutiful dome, to honor the space where her stomach resides. Indeed, love that last part for that middle school. Indeed, the narrator finds herself in a metaphorical predicament because she wants to feel comfortable with her fullness. Yet she recognizes how uncomfortable she feels in the clothing she's wearing. So it's almost like she went, called it A Country I'm Trying to Love, then went to the jeans, then went back to the gracious gut, dutiful dome. And again, how she's, we're going to build this house and these walls and expand. And so it's almost like going back to this idea of loving your body, loving the space it's in. Indeed, the narrator finds herself in a metaphorical predicament because while she wants to feel, that's an interesting choice of words there, because while she wants to feel comfortable with her fullness, she recognizes how uncomfortable she feels in the clothing she is wearing, because while she wants to feel comfortable with her fullness, with her binge-worthy fullness. Ooh, I like that. Binge-worthy fullness. Binge-worthy fullness, she recognizes how uncomfortable she feels in the clothing she's wearing. Therefore, Jackson uses metaphor to make direct comparisons. Therefore, Jackson uses metaphor to I think we don't really need this sentence. So I think that is an okay closer. Therefore, while she wants to feel comfortable with her binge worthy fullness, she recognizes how uncomfortable she feels in the clothing she is wearing. In the clothing she is wearing. Still, then she extends her metaphor by comparing her belly to a gracious gut, dutiful dome to honor the space where her stomach resides. Still, she savors so when you're gluttonous, you eat too much. Still, she savors gracious gut, dutiful dome, honoring. Still, anthem for my belly after eating too much. So, this idea of praising. Still, she savors. So, again, an anthem is praising in a song. Still, she praises. Still, she praises. Her stomach. Still, she praises. Oh, okay. I got to go back to the top. Kara Jackson's Anthem for My Belly After Eating Too Much indulges in gluttonous metaphors. For instance, when Jackson's poem states, My belly, a country I'm trying to love, she hyperbolically compares her stomach to a country to emphasize how full she feels, yet she needs to feel comfortable with that experience. Later, the narrator calls jeans a fashionable prison. Here, Jackson compares popular clothing to a jail cell because the narrator must fit her stomach into a denim confinement. Then she extends her metaphor by comparing her belly to a gracious gut, dutiful dome to honor the space where her stomach resides. Indeed, the narrator finds herself in a metaphorical predicament because while she wants to feel comfortable with her binge-worthy fullness, she recognizes how uncomfortable she feels in the clothing she is wearing. Still, she praises the space. Praises the space. Her stomach takes. Still, she praises the space her stomach takes. Still, she praises the space her stomach takes. I kind of like how that is, and it's so important, right, writers, to read your work aloud. I cannot emphasize that enough, besides letting it sit for a day or two and then coming back to it, because you really it's when you read it aloud that you can really get into it and hear how it sounds, and so that really helps contribute to your particular writer's voice. So I think I'm good with that. Still, she praises the space her stomach takes because she does, because in the end she says, in that last sentence, after suffering, because she goes from something negative, suffering, my gracious gut. So I'm going to clear all this for a minute, because here we've got that period. And then this is really her last sentence. And it's a long one. It's a long last sentence. My gracious gut, dutiful dome, I will wear a house for you that you can live in. Promise walls that embrace your growing flesh and watch you reach toward everything possible. So it is limitless, the possibilities of her belly. And so that's why I'm sticking to it. I'm sticking with it. Still, she praises the space her stomach takes. I feel really confident about this one, really good about it. I'm going to go ahead and move this down, Control C, backspace, so I can kind of move this up. This was really, Kara Jackson, wow. Thank you so much. I mean, I sigh, but I sigh from gluttonous exhaustion, and really taking this one apart, taking this baby apart. It's really, really been fun working with this poem because I love it. I love how deep we were able to go with this contemporary work, this contemporary poem. And that's what writing is about. And I got to tell you guys, right, writers, if you are in a situation where you are assigned poems, I encourage you to ask your instructors, ask your teachers, am I allowed to select my own poem? Can I pick my own poem to do this assignment? Because it really, you should have the power as the writer to write about what you want to write about. And this is one of those examples. I mean, Kara Jackson is writing about what she wants to write about. And, I encourage that. And I have a voice in your spaces. And with that, I'm going to say thank you so much. Love you guys. I hope this experience was definitely binge worthy for you. And I hope that, you got something out of this and that I'm ensuring your success here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, writers, have a great one. Take care. Bye-bye.